Podcasting from Astrolab Studios, this is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we revisit sci-fi, fantasy, and just plain weird shows that have faded from the collective consciousness and didn't quite make the impact that they intended. This week, Harsh Realm, Episode 9.
75 million bucks in gold, Hobbs, and I'm getting a cut.
What do you mean?
I mean, they're letting me in on the haul. You should get your share, too. All we have to do is set up the battle, let them fight.
Watch them kill each other?
If that's what they want to do, I say let them fight.
I can't do that.
You already have.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast that is recording remotely again this week because Drake won't respect Jordan's schedule.
Well, maybe we shouldn't say that, but sadly it is true, but I think that's what we should probably leave it at.
You don't want to talk too much about your job, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's leave it at that. I mean, yeah, I think it's fine.
Don't worry, everyone. You'll hear all about this in Pusha T's next diss track, so you'll learn all about it.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, but yeah, I'll agree with you.
I'm Luke. This is my co-host, Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
Oh, I'm just paying at the pump. Hey, we got two things in there. That's pretty good.
So many great catchphrases.
Yeah. Was there any really great catchphrases from well, I mean, What's Real was from what do you call that? What's that show? Tech War? Was there anything from Beyond Westworld other than like, you're a woman, go back to the kitchen?
I'm trying to think, but nothing pops to mind. I think that was a pretty catchphrase free zone.
No one liked that show. I don't think any of our listeners liked it. We didn't really like it. The viewing public in 1980 didn't like it.
Well, I've got some exciting news for you, actually.
Oh, really?
I just finished watching Westworld Season 2.
Oh, did you? I kind of have stalled because it's a mix of boredom and I just kind of stopped watching, and so I don't know if I'm ever going to finish it.
Well, the finale, let me tell you, when they introduced John Moore, hoo-wee.
No, do they really?
Yeah, and Quaid.
No. Are you joking?
You're right. I'm lying to you.
Oh my gosh. I thought, what a weird thing to have created some sort of continuity and synergy with a failed TV show that I'm sure they want to forget. That would have been nuts. You actually had me for a bit.
I knew you had to finish it, so I figured you would you'd buy into it.
What a silly rube I am.
Just a country rube, Jordan.
I ain't one of your fancy Kansas City lawyers, you know?
Before we get into things, though, I since this is the last episode we're going to do on Harsh Realm, I thought I'd tie up one of the loose ends from our first episode.
Oh, yeah? What was that?
I texted my mom, and I got her to send me my list of things I wrote from the millennium that went into the time capsule.
Oh, cool. What was in there?
I'll give you a brief little peek at it. The questions weren't on the piece of paper. Whatever they were are gone now.
Right.
So all I have is the answers, but I've done my best to figure out what the questions were.
I hope they weren't yes and no's.
No. I believe one of them was what job do you want in the 21st century? I said I wanted to be a paleontologist.
Oh, that's cute because of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it didn't work out for me, but
yeah, that's all right.
My prediction for the future, though, was filmmaking would be made easier.
In some ways, I suppose. The hours are still ridiculous.
A little digital, though. I think that's... I get partial points.
That was your prediction for the future?
That was my prediction for the future.
Oh.
I mean, I don't think in 1999 it was too hard to guess that digital filmmaking was around the corner.
It was like one of your predictions where like that century would end.
What else? Hold on. I'll go through the rest of this pretty quickly here. I said the best event from the 20th century was the man landing on the moon. The man.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's a good pick.
My favorite band from the year 2000? Do you have a guess?
I'm going to throw it out there, just who was popular at the time. I'm going to guess Incubus.
Weird Al.
In 2000, your favorite band was Weird Al?
I did not listen to a lot of music.
Oh, wow. That might have been my answer in 1990.
I was probably listening to his parody song that was about episode 1.
I actually remember that, yeah.
Favorite actor? William H. Macy.
The teens love William H. Macy.
I had a poster on my wall of William. It's great. I loved William. And the last one that she sent actually had a thing associated with it. We were supposed to write down our favorite memories. My favorite memories were The Simpsons and Seinfeld.
Oh, that's that's all really nice. There's nothing too much to be embarrassed about there.
My mom texted me after she sent it to me, and she says, "I don't know why I tried so hard to create family memories for you when all you wanted to remember was TV."
I remember at one point I found a list I had made, and it was just my favorite movies and different things. And do you know what my favorite movie I had listed was? And it was Star Trek Generations.
Ooh.
Which isn't even a very good Star Trek movie, but I was...
No.
And I think my number 2 was like Batman Forever, and I was like, oh, this is a bad time, Jordan.
You had specific tastes.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Do you have anything you want to get into before the show starts?
Yeah, I was going to talk about some of the, I guess, post-Harsh Realm careers that some of these people had.
Great. I'm very curious, actually. I did a little bit of research, but I haven't actually looked that hard into it.
Okay, well, we'll go through it quick, but I'm going to mention one thing off the bat, that I'm not going to go in the order that people would think I'm going to go in. I'm going to save Scott Bairstow, I guess he pronounces his name, who plays Thomas Hobbes. I'm going to save him for the last, and you'll see why. But anyways, obviously the show created by Chris Carter. I don't think we really need to talk much about him. We know what he's done, which is pretty much the X-Files and a bunch of shows like this. So we'll kind of move on to some of the other people, because I don't know how interesting that is. One thing that's kind of interesting is the one of the producers on the show was Vince Gilligan, obviously most well known for creating Breaking Bad. He didn't write any of these episodes. I think he's listed as like consulting producer on the show, but he's early in his career wrote for The X-Files, Lone Gunman, and I think he also wrote some Millennium. So he clearly was a bit either Chris Carter's right-hand man, or at least was an up-and-coming writer at the time who has gone on to bigger and better things. So it's kind of fun to see his name on the credits, but I don't know how much he was involved in this show. So we'll go through some of the cast. So as we mentioned in the previous episode, Mike Pinnochio, who knew his name was Mike, was played by D.B. Sweeney. Since the show, he's been pretty steady. He's worked on everything from 24 to 2.5 Men to Major Crimes. And if you're watching Sharp Objects, he's on that show now as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's had a very, very, very successful career. He's been working very steady since whenever the show was on, 99 or whatever it was, 2000. So moving on, Omar Santiago was played by Terry O'Quinn. And obviously, I think we've mentioned it before, he's most famous for Lost, which came out after this. But he was also on Alias, The West Wing, Blacklist. And another person acting he's in the new Castle Rock, which is the Stephen King show that's currently airing now.
J.J. Abrams loves him.
And he's, again, another actor who's worked like crazy. If you need a bald guy, he's your man. All right, moving into some of the other characters who didn't have as good roles. Playing the role of Florence, we had Rachel Hayward. She's been working pretty steady. There's been a lot of Christmas movies there. I wrote down a couple, which was Hearts of Christmas, Firehouse Christmas, which I know is your favorite.
Oh, my top 10 Christmas movies.
Yeah, one I liked was Jingle All the Way 2, which in my opinion is the Godfather 2 of Christmas movies.
I'm excited to know there is a Jingle All the Way 2.
Yeah, I didn't know either until I didn't look it up. I just went, oh, Jingle All the Way 2, and that's as far as I got. So that's a little homework for anyone listening. Waters, who weirdly his credit, he's just named as Waters. He's never given a first name in the show. Was played by Max Martini, and as Courtney mentioned in a previous episode, he's worked in what was it he worked on with her?
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim. That's right. Well, he's also worked on things like Lie to Me, Revenge, Training Day, and NCIS Los Angeles, which is one of the 30 NCIS shows. So again, another actor, kind of steady working actor.
Your parents love those, right?
Yeah, everyone loves it. Every parent loves it. Sophie Green was played by Samantha Mathis, which weirdly, I couldn't remember what I knew her from, and then it just clicked this week when I was watching the last episode, is that she played Daisy in the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, I recognized her name too, and I couldn't figure out why.
I'm going to go on a limb, and I know it's not a popular opinion. I kind of like that movie. It's really weird, and they built a very bizarre world. I'm not saying it's a good movie, but I really enjoyed it at the time. So maybe we should rewatch that sometime, Luke.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that movie has a lot going for it.
Yeah. So anyways, she was in a bunch of stuff since then, since like Grey's Anatomy, Under the Dome, and The Strain, and a bunch of other stuff. So again, working very steady. The actress playing Inga Fossa was Sarah Jane Redmond, And she is clearly a favorite of Chris Carter. She was in every Chris Carter show. She played 2 characters in The X-Files, in Millennium, Harsh Realm, and now she's also been in stuff like Smallville, Arrow, and iZombie. So I think she's made a nice career of someone who can show up to comic conventions and sign many different photographs.
Good. It's a good gig if you can get it.
Hey, not bad. Second to last, Dexter the dog.
Oh, good. I was wondering if you were going to answer that question.
And we'll go to Dexter in a minute, but Dexter the dog, played by Vinny, and Vinny has no other credits, so I'm assuming he died shortly after filming.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true, but he has no other credits. That's his only show he did.
As soon as the show was canceled, they put him down.
Yeah, they're like enough of you and your hilarious antics, you cute little dog. And then, as I said, I'd saved Scar Bairstow for the end, and it's a little bit weird, and it might be a bit of a downer, but before he did this show, he was mostly known being the character Ned Grayson on Party of Five. I don't know if you ever watched Party of Five. I never did. I remember my sister did, but...
Yeah, that was not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, he was apparently known for that. And then he, right after Harsh Realm, he was on the show Wolf Lake, which I don't know if you remember.
No.
His career took a bit of a turn, and I'll read this out to you. In January 2004, he was sentenced to 4 months in jail in Washington State following a modified guilty plea to second-degree assault. He also agreed to undergo a sexual deviancy evaluation and to be under suspicion for 1 year following his release. He had originally been charged with second-degree rape after he was accused of having sex in 1998 with a 12-year-old girl who was related to his ex-wife and continued the relationship with her until 2001.
Oh, no.
So since that, he hasn't really had a career. I actually tried looking up what he's been up to, and what it seems is he has a bit of a singing career that he does, but he's kept a very low profile after this. So if it shades your opinion a little bit of the show, yeah, it's kind of it's not kind of gross. It is gross, but yes, it was not a happy story for him or the people involved with him. But that's why he hasn't really been doing much. So there you go.
This is the worst thing that we've encountered so far. That's awful. Truly awful.
It really is. It's one of those things where I was like, do I mention it? But I think we have to mention it, right? So it is what it is, and here's the thing, it doesn't make the show any worse.
I guess that's true. But maybe don't support his singing career, everybody.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of gross.
Well, thanks for that, Jordan. That was a real insight into something I am very grossed out by.
I promise you, as we go through this last episode, knowing this now about him, it's going to be weird on this episode as we go through it.
Our savior is not who we thought he was.
Anyway, do you want to start getting into this episode? I have one other thing I want to mention, and it was actually a question for you.
Sure. Do you want me to start the episode first, or do you want the question?
If you don't mind, I want to ask you your opinion as we've gotten to the end, because we haven't really talked about it, and we really should have to this point, which is Dexter the dog. I've been thinking about this all week, and I want to know what you thought. Dexter's a bit of an anomaly in this show. Clearly, the dog is written to be sort of a character. It appears in both worlds, obviously in the world and Harsh Realm. So here's my question. Dexter the dog is one of 3 things. Is Dexter a computer program, like he's a VC, or is he a person that is hooked up to Harsh Realm that is being unfortunately made to be a dog, or is he a dog that's hooked up to Harsh Realm, is living out a virtual dog life? I think it's one of those 3 things.
Oh, I mean, I guess if the show had gone longer, they'd have to make a decision. And I mean, the most interesting thing would be for him to be a person hooked up to a dog.
Yeah, how weird would that be? Wouldn't it be great if all the animals were just people who got just like a crappy gig? Like, yeah, you're going to get into Harsh Realm. Oh, yeah, buy you with a rat. Plug him in.
I mean, I also like the idea that he is a dog in the real world as well, who's playing a different dog in Harsh Realm.
He's a golden retriever who's playing
Jack
a little Jack Russell Terrier. He's all hooked up. He's laying on a cute little table with little nodes on his forehead.
His little legs run when he's chasing something.
Yeah, exactly. That's cute.
That's very cute. Good question, though.
Thank you. You can see I've been spending my time wisely.
Yeah, it's been a busy week for you.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's get into the episode then. So this is the synopsis for the final episode of Harsh Realm. Episode 9, Camera Obscura. Hobbs and Pinocchio get involved with a priest and two families feuding over a treasure of buried gold.
Well, what they actually should just say is, this is the Hatfields and McCoys and Romeo and Juliet. That's basically what this is.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. It is a totally standalone episode. So everything we're going to talk about like almost has no bearing. It was strange to me that this was the final episode, but actually I know why.
I just had the feeling when we started that we were going to not only not end on a cliffhanger, that it was going to be a standalone episode that really doesn't matter in the grand overarching storyline that is this show. And that's exactly what it is. It's just an episode that could be here, couldn't, doesn't really matter.
Well, this is why it is the episode that it is. The show was canceled halfway through filming, and Chris Carter flew from LA to Toronto or to Vancouver to give them the bad news. So really, like, the fact that they're still even like performing as well as they are is a credit to them, because like they found out during this episode that the show was canceled.
Really? That's surprising.
Yeah, so there was supposed to be more episodes. This is just happens to be the one they stopped on.
Yeah, I guess it all makes sense when you think about it. I mean, it is weird that they were filming when they found out they were canceled, but it is a weird episode to have finished on, which we'll go through, because all of the weird dangling mythology and world building that has been set up you'll never know anything about it. There's no Santiago in this. There's no military in this. There's no real questions about reality. What is Harsh Realm versus the world? How does it work? None of that is in this episode.
But there is something of use in this episode. Right off the top, the cold open explains how Harsh Realm got to where it is today. Do you want to synopsize that for us?
What it basically is it shows a guy who's on a park bench and he's got a briefcase and he's clearly despondent or stressed out. You can see the nerves on him, and there's kids running and playing and life is going on. And basically what happens is you find out he has a nuclear bomb on him and he sets it off. So it blows up and destroys a large portion of the world, as a nuclear bomb would. And then you get a narrator saying, this was the plan for Harsh Realm. I think they mentioned it's 6 hours was normal, like a normal replication of the world. And then a nuclear bomb goes off so that the game can basically start and soldiers can start dealing with what the world would be like, I guess, in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Is that a good way of explaining it?
That's pretty good. I'll give you a little more specificity if you like. First of all, Harsh Realm went online on October 13th, 1995.
Right, that's right.
The bomb went off in New York, actually. So the only nuke that went off, or at least the only one we know about, went off in New York City.
Right. Oh, right. And that's important to this episode.
Yeah, and because they say like 4 million VCs got killed in like 2.5 seconds, that's sort of what happened. So we kind of see this bomb go off, and basically the people who died in New York City when this like sketchy, stressed out guy sets off the bomb. And it kind of just gives us our first introduction as to why society in Harsh Realm has fallen apart. Other than it was just programmed that way, obviously.
Right. It does seem odd that they would even have to go through that process. It's like, why not just program it as a post-nuclear world? Why even have to go through that scenario? But, I mean, why even ask questions of Harsh Realm at this point?
They had to set the simulation up perfectly so that they'd know exactly what would happen when they set a variable into it.
I see. Okay. All right, sure.
Oh, you hate my explanation.
Well, it's the last episode. Who cares?
Anyway, after this cold open, we catch up with Hobbs and Pinocchio. And where are they, Jordan? How would you describe where they are? There's like hills with fires shooting out of them and like cars.
Remind me. Jog my memory.
The camera like pans down over a bunch of mounds covered in grass, and there's like fire shooting at the top of them, and there's like cars randomly parked around. Like there's a woman like dancing on the back of one of them, trying to entice them. Like,
oh yeah, you know what it reminded me of? A bunch of times you see movies that are set in the near future, and everyone is sort of dressed like they're real big fans of Pearl Jam, and it's like a weird apocalyptic early 90s. And this seems to happen a lot and stuff. It's always like it's like a post-apocalyptic world. So there's a girl dancing with an Anarchy t-shirt on a truck, and I was like, why is that always the go-to? It's like every wardrobe person has decided on the same thing.
It was very strange. It felt like they were at an outdoor bar or maybe a barbecue. It was very unclear. But you brought up Dexter earlier, but I was going to ask you, this is now the third episode where there's no dog. What happened to that dog?
I can only assume him and Florence are off having way more interesting adventures than the one we're seeing. There's an alternate show with Florence and the dog called, weirdly, Florence and the Dog, and it's way more interesting. You can actually see characters because of the lighting. The funny thing is neither character says anything. They just look at each other and it's a lot of like, because one's a dog and one's a mute. But much, much better show. So that's what's happening on that end. They're like, I don't know. They're doing fun things. They're going to roller coasters and stuff.
We'll put that in the expanded universe in the feature film series. It'll be Florence and the Dog, a Harsh Realm story.
Yeah, right. Right.
Anyway, what's interesting in this episode is it seems to come off of Cincinnati because Hobbs just keeps talking about how in order to move forward, he needs to put together an army to oppose Santiago. And this is the first time we've ever heard him like state a goal, really.
I've really ragged on Hobbs this whole time for 9 episodes now about how dumb he is. And look, he's still dumb. There's no question about it. However, Pinnochio is such a drag to be around as your number 2 guy. And in this scene and in many, many scenes, he's either mentioning how he wants to eat a dog or he basically is there to go, we've got no chance against Santiago. Like, and he says it in this scene again. It's just like, there's no point. Why even try? And can you imagine hanging out with that guy 24 hours a day with just someone who's just, everything is just poo-pooed? Like, man, Pinocchio, have a Snickers bar and cheer up or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're there for. Like, Hobbs keeps saying, how are we going to recruit these guys to kind of join us in our crusade? And, like, Pinocchio doesn't want anything to do with it.
He's a real Debbie Downer. I've said it before.
It's true. It is very true. It's at this point, though, that we meet a character. I don't know if you caught this guy's name. It was very funny to me. I had to look it up online because I half caught it. I'm like, did I hear that right?
No, I didn't catch it. What was it?
Prince Stewart?
Oh.
That was his full name. He's one half of the the McCoys and the
Hatfields and McCoys, yeah.
The Hatfields and McCoys. The Stewarts are his side of it. And he's there because he needs to get some hired guns to help protect his family in New York City. He's heard that Hobbs and Pinocchio are very good at their jobs. I don't know why.
Also not true.
And he comes up to them and he offers them pieces of gold in order to, like, join them.
It was so crazy. This is the first time we've ever really had this kind of currency show in the world. I think the quote I wrote down was, that gold buys you 5 men. And I was like, oh, so someone's worked this currency out. We've never mentioned anything about gold, and it seems an odd thing to create a currency in a world where at least a big or a large portion of the population knows this is not real.
It's all been bartering up till now. I don't know what value gold brings you in a
5
virtual apocalypse.
It has the same problem that a lot of these episodes have, which is they're creating something that doesn't really jive with previous episodes. And I know that's being really nitpicky, but it is weird to have it be the crux of this whole episode, and we've never mentioned gold before. Because that's an easy line to have thrown in another episode. Oh, I should get some gold for this or whatever. But no one has cared about gold until this point.
Well, it's interesting because this gold comes up this episode, and this is also the first episode that they've given Pinocchio like a goal or a drive. He really wants that gold because he's going to use it to kind of disappear or like live off of it. The rest of this episode, he's going to be obsessing over getting gold and kind of with the idea that he's going to retire or get away from all the Harsh Realm craziness. He's going to stay in Harsh Realm, but this is his ticket, he says.
He goes, it's my sunset, is what I wrote down.
It's the first time we've ever seen him want something.
Other than his leg back. It's actually not a terrible character motivation for him. You know, he's someone who's physically been maimed in the real world. He's been made whole in this digital version, and the character now wants to live the life that he can't in the real world. I think that's a great character motivation. However, they haven't shown that for the first 8 episodes. They've waited to the last episode and go, oh yeah, by the way, that's why he wants things. Because up to this point, it's been very wishy-washy about why, and I think I've mentioned it, why is he even hanging out? He doesn't seem to like Hobbs at all. Why is he doing any of this stuff?
You've brought it up before, and I haven't really thought about it too hard, but when it was finally like introduced here, I was really like, oh, that's weird. You're right. We don't know any of this character's real wants or needs or motivations.
Oh, well, that's Harsh Realm. I mean, it's just par for the course.
Anyway, they head into New York, into Manhattan, actually, where the Stewarts, the family of the Stewarts, are living in an old Con Ed power plant. They arrive to like kind of meet the family, but the daughter is run off. So Daddy Stewart asks Pinocchio to go help him search the sewer system to see if he can find her. And while they're down there, they bump into the son of their arch enemy, the McKinleys. This kid, he's going to be the Romeo for our Romeo and Juliet story.
I was a little disappointed because I was hoping it wasn't going to be what it ended up being, and I was hoping it was going to be more like they discovered the Lost Boys and there was some sort of Peter Pan leader, but that wasn't what happened.
Not only do they like quite clearly telegraph this is going to be a Romeo and Juliet story, like the one side's daughter loves the other side's son, but at some point Pinocchio literally calls them Romeo and Juliet.
Things in this episode move so quickly, which was again a problem in some previous episodes, that sometimes I didn't even understand if a character was pretending or not. Like, 'cause we'll go into this, but right after this, Hobbs follows the boy back to his place. Pinocchio, excuse me. And the guy, we'll go through it, but the guy's like, do you want to work for me? I'll give you money. And Pinocchio's like, okay. And I thought, what? He just switched allegiances? And I thought it was like a weird, he was playing both sides, but he's not. He just wants money.
Yeah, Daddy Stewart wanted to beat up the kid in the sewers, and Pinocchio wouldn't let him, so he walks him home, basically. And yeah, the Daddy McKinley's just like, I'll give you gold if you fight for my side. And yeah, Pinocchio's just like, cool, I'm in.
Yeah, he doesn't even talk to Hobbs about it, or they don't, it's just, yeah, sure, I'll do it for money.
Yeah, and then we cut back to the Stewart household, farmstead, I don't know, the power plant they live in. And Hobbs finds the daughter, and she's just coming back from her rendezvous with Romeo. And like her mom catches her too and just like slaps the shit out of her. Very, very mean family. But as Daddy Stewart gets back, he finds Hobbs and he tells Hobbs that the McKinleys have kidnapped Pinocchio. Not that Pinocchio's walked off, but that he's been kidnapped. And then he just basically bullies Hobbs into agreeing to attack the McKinleys to get Pinocchio back. And Hobbs is just like, maybe we should look into it or do some scouting. And the guy just like keeps bullying him until Hobbs agrees.
Yeah, but it doesn't take much to convince Hobbs of anything, though. You're just like, man bad. And Hobbs is like, okay, because he's dumb.
It is true. He actually draws up battle plans for them, like on a loose leaf sheet of paper. And when you finally get to see the battle plans, it looks like a high school football coach's playbook. It makes no sense.
I was hoping that it was just drawn in crayon because it was Hobbs. I assumed that he just like grabbed it in his like silly little fist and just smashed together like pictures of a sun and some people and stuff.
I mean, it's not that far off.
Yeah, it's not that far off.
It's at this point in the episode that they introduce another character, this priest who kind of lives in the vicinity of these two families who are feuding. We actually saw him a little bit in the cold open. The guy with the bomb talked to him briefly, and then at the end of that cold open, after the nuke's gone off, we see this rubble of a church, and we see like a scarred hand, who am I thinking of? Not Splinter.
Shredder,
like Shredder at the end of Ninja Turtles 1, when he like his hand juts out of the rubble after having been beaten up. It was a very funny scene. But this is this character, this priest who survived the nuclear blast in New York, and he's still kind of living in the area.
Like, can I mention two things about this character? One, he's our second Two-Face character.
Yeah, half his face was scarred. And
he's played by a character actor, Robert Knepper. And I don't know if you know that actor, but he's done a ton of stuff. He's been in a bunch of Star Treks too. I don't know if you remember. He's been in Voyager, and he was in Next Generation. He was in Carnival. He's a really good actor, and I don't know if this role lended itself to him being able to really show anything, but he is a good actor.
It's funny, actually. Melanie's watching iZombie, and the last couple of seasons, he's been playing a zombie priest on iZombie. So I saw him. I'm like, hey, that's that priest on that other show.
Oh, how about that?
Full circle his career.
Yeah, he doesn't like mentioning Harsh Realm, though.
Who does?
After I kind of read about Scott, like we're friends, Scott, there's a lot of scenes of him and the teenager girl by themselves having like kind of like heart-to-hearts. And I was like, ooh, these scenes haven't aged well.
Well, with full context, not something that's good.
Doesn't look so good. I kept thinking, I'm like to the mother character, I'm like, maybe go monitor what's happening here, because I don't know what's happening with Hobbs and your daughter in the sewer.
Don't leave him with the stranger.
Yeah.
Anyway, the one thing I noticed about the priest's scarring, he was like theoretically at ground zero of a nuclear blast. His scarring looks like a suntan, like a mild burn.
I think part of it is budgetary restrictions, but you're right. It is funny to have been through at ground zero of a nuclear blast, and your injuries are fairly superficial.
No, for sure. It's very minor.
I think he might have a limp though too.
Oh, he might have a limp. But what he did gain from the nuclear blast is he now has this stone altar that has like a light glowing down on it. Like it kind of weirdly looks like a lava lamp, but it's like full of like people's faces. Like he has this data stream from Harsh Realm that like allows him to see possible futures.
Which we should go into in a little bit about how this works. But yes, it's sort of supposed to representing sort of like knowledge from God. At least that's how he's taking it. That he's been given this gift that will allow him to see the future so that he can change the outcome of things.
Yeah, also very funny that the nuclear bomb that was just supposed to start Harsh Realm simulation also damaged it somehow to the point that it's showing the future.
That's the world that Harsh Realm is.
It's a very imperfect simulation. Anyway, the priest has been using this like device, and he's been warning the McKinleys about what the Stewarts have been up to. Kind of like he posits as he's protecting them from the feud so they don't get killed. And I should mention this because we haven't yet. The McKinleys live in a bank because that's where gold is, and the Stewarts live just like 10 feet down the street in this power plant, so they're very closely in proximity.
I don't know if it was meant to look the way it did, but the way it's been filmed and the way the scenes play out, it seems as if they're almost quite literally beside each other, because anytime they're like, we gotta go find the McKinleys, they just like take 2 steps and they're right there beside each other. And this happens over and over in the episode, and it's funny because there's no way you could have this conflict and have them literally on top of each other.
Well, I mean, we should get I'll mention this now. We don't need to get into it, but I'll mention it now. These two characters, if you think we're kind of describing like warlords or some sort of like strong family patriarch, no, this is like 2 suburban dads who live next to each other. Like that's the amount of gravitas and like thought that is in these characters. It's very weird.
Their character motivations are they're angry at each other. And of course, we learn later, I don't think this is spoilers, the reason they're angry at each other is they used to be partners, they both wanted to get gold, and they both feel that the other person stole some gold from the other person. So now it has created this gigantic feud that could clearly be resolved with one conversation. But anyway, that's the feud that the two have. But you're right, they look like 2 just dads, just normal dudes.
It's like they're having a fencing dispute about whose the fence is on which side of the property.
Yeah, your branch is growing over my fence.
Anyway, the priest gives the McKinley side, he uses his future seeing power to give them Hobbs's battle plan, to kind of give them the heads up the attack's coming, and he gives them like the exact time it's going to happen.
Here's what I don't understand about this program. It would make sense to me if things played out all as a computer program, but with every real person in the game, the outcomes would always change. Am I not wrong? Am I not right, excuse me?
Theoretically, it should all play out exactly the same every time. It's the variables that come into it, and the only variables in the game would be the non-VC characters. So by introducing Hobbs and Pinnochio in, because they're the only things not running on the computer program, they'd be the only variables that could change anything.
How would they ever possibly be able to get his battle plan? And he actually has a physical copy of the battle plan somehow. I'm guessing he wrote it down. How would you even get that if Hobbs is not a programmed character? So the Harsh Realm program would never know how he would react to something, to the point of it would be able to replicate documents he wrote.
Well, my guess would be that Hobbs has already written it at that point. In the story he has anyway, he's already started drawing the battle plan. So he could at least, they are in existence.
Well, that I guess that's my point. I understand if it's in existence, but it seems like not only does it give you what's going to happen, but then he also is able to, the priest, is able to adjust what's able to happen, but then it changes this thing. I guess you're right. It's giving possible futures.
Yeah, I think it's possible futures.
Right.
That's okay. My guess anyway. It never gets into it very clearly. It's just like he has the ability to see possible futures, and then they just like wave their hands, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, look over there.
Yeah, exactly. Before the battle happens, though, Hobbs and Pinnochio manage to like get back together finally and like touch base. They haven't seen each other now in a couple hours, and Pinnochio has switched sides, and they kind of like get into what Pinocchio thinks the best thing to do is, which is Pinocchio wants them to let the two families fight so they can get paid by both sides.
They really show him in this episode to really have no scruples, which I think maybe they've hinted at before, but this is really the only episode where they've really made it explicit.
No, it's very clear in this episode that they finally are like, oh, he just wants to make a lot of money so he can do something. So he doesn't care how he gets it, which is weird because there's been no currency up till now, but that's fine. At least it's a motivation for him.
Right.
But he also happens to show Hobbs this battle plan that Hobbs has made. And so now Hobbs is like, oh, hey, how do you have my battle plan already? He's like, oh, that priest can see the future. So Hobbs takes a little brief break to go talk to the priest too. And the priest he doesn't want these two people to fight. So he asks the priest what he can do to stop them from fighting. And the priest tells him, just don't let them fight until 417. And then your problems will be solved. He's very mystical. He won't explain what he means. But like this kind of gives Hobbs his motivation to at least attempt to stop them from fighting.
This is one thing that drives me crazy in TV shows, which is someone is being vague for no other reason than you need the characters to not have that information so the episode can keep going. There's no reason that the priest can't go, hey guys, I have this thing that can show me the future. Why don't we all come look at it and you can stop your fight or whatever it might be, you know? But it's like, oh, I have to be vague just because. It's like, well, don't be vague.
Yeah, it's true. Although, I mean, maybe I'll just spoil it right now. The priest's secret motivation is he's actually trying to keep the feud going because he's very lonely. And if he doesn't keep the feud going, they'll all leave and he'll be by himself.
Which, again, makes no sense because it's like, well, why don't you just go with them?
Yeah, he could easily leave, but like he is being vague because he feels like if he doesn't tell them everything, he can keep them near him so he's not lonely. That's his only reasoning.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb. Anyway.
It's very silly, but we got back to this battle that's about to happen. Hobbs is trying to hold them off till 417, and as the battle starts, and it's a very bad battle. Like if this was Hobbs's plan, it's crazy. They're kind of just like wildly shooting at each other and not hitting anybody.
Did you notice though that it seemed like the directing got very different at this point? It suddenly seemed like a De Palma movie. There was these very disarming close-ups of people's faces at sort of an odd low angle, and there was a bunch of shots like that, and it had nothing has been like that in a Harsh Realm up to this point. And suddenly in the battle I was like, is someone else directing this? It was very weird. Did you notice that too?
I didn't notice it actually, no, but I would guess that it was a good way to cover up some awkward choreography.
Well, maybe that's what it was.
But at any rate, on 417 on the nose, they have to call the battle for rain because it starts to rain.
Acid rain.
That's true. It is acid rain. It is burning their skin. So it's not just that it's wet outside, but
again, the priest could have just said, hey, at 417 it's going to rain acid rain, so if you don't want to hurt your friend, start the battle then. But he had to be all mystical about it.
It's very funny because Hobbs keeps going back to this priest. Like I think he goes back now and is just like, why don't you stop the feud? And as I just spoiled for you, it's because he's lonely. He doesn't want them to go. So Hobbs takes Pinocchio's gold from him and gives it to Romeo and Juliet and says, if you two run away, you two at least can get away from your crazy families. And the priest is like, no, if they leave, they'll die. And Hobbs is like, nah, don't listen to that guy. Just get out of here.
Also, isn't it funny that after the last episode where Hobbs was so weirdly spiritual or religious or however you want to say it, to the point where he never shut up about his belief that there was a higher power controlling Harsh Realm. This episode, it's just like, meh, I don't believe any of this stuff.
Yeah, he waves off a priest who claims to have a direct line to God. It's very inconsistent. What I did like, though, is as soon as the Romeo and Juliet take the gold and run off, he turns to Pinocchio and says, well, I guess we can go. We don't really need to do anything else here. And Pinocchio's like, I need my gold. We gotta get more gold. He's really obsessed with gold.
Yeah, he's like a leprechaun in this episode.
As someone pointed out to me, he's actually kind of like a dragon.
Oh, yeah, right. He's real. What was it, Smog? What was it from The Hobbit?
Yeah, Smog from The Hobbit. He just gotta get that gold. Anyway, as soon as the acid rain stops, this is what you're saying, the feud is immediately back on. Like, the McKinleys and the Stewarts are like face to face again, basically yelling at each other where they left off. Except, for some reason, in scenes we didn't get to see, somehow the McKinleys have kidnapped Juliet because the priest, like, ratted them out. The kids out when they're running away. So the McKinleys are now holding her hostage. And in return to get them back, they basically force the Stewarts to turn on the power in the power plant so they can use the elevator to go down into the bank vault and start getting the gold.
Well, we should mention that was the sort of stalemate that these two families had. One family was controlling the power, and one family was controlling the actual vault, but the family controlling the vault couldn't actually get into it because they didn't have access to power, so they couldn't take the, the freight elevator down to the gold. So that was the sort of stalemate. So at this point, the power is being put on so people can get down to the vault where they're hoping gold is.
And Hobbs immediately puts it together that the priest ratted out the kids. He goes back to the priest, and the priest kind of like lets him into his inner sanctum and shows him his magical future viewing station. I don't even know, this altar he has. And when Hobbs looks in, he sees an image of Pinocchio killing him.
Yep.
That's all.
But you know it's not going to happen, so, there's no tension.
You didn't think it raised the stakes?
No, it didn't at all.
So we cut back to the McKinleys waiting for the power to come back on so they can go down to the vault. And as soon as the power comes back on, which is my favorite part, Pinocchio betrays them all so that he can have the gold to himself.
I know. What was his plan coming out? They're still all up there. He's just going to point his gun and get out? Carrying, how much gold could he carry?
I don't know. But he basically takes the elevator down by himself. And then Hobbs, knowing that there's danger, runs in, but he's there too late. So he has to follow Pinocchio down into the vault, knowing that he could himself die in that vault.
And let me ask you now, because at this point, Pinocchio seems to be acting fairly irrationally, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's got gold fever.
Well, that's the thing, because I thought they were sort of implying that the gold is down there, but it's very irradiated. There's been so much radiation from this nuclear blast that if you're down there so long, you'll end up dying from radiation poisoning. But Pinocchio's acting very, very strange. And my thought was, are they implying that radiation makes you crazy? Because that's how it seemed. He was acting so irrationally and so off the wall that it seemed more than just someone who wanted money.
Oh, yeah, that's what they're implying. They're implying that radiation has driven him insane. He's got this one goal, get gold, and now all he can do is, focus on it because of radiation poisoning. But I don't think you just get sick from radiation poisoning. You don't,
He should just be on the ground feeling sick. That should have been it. With, sores on his body. I guess that's not as interesting a character.
Yeah, that's basically what's happening, though. When Hobbs gets down there, the vault has been blocked by falling bricks or something. There's an obstruction in the way, so Hobbs is pulling bricks off, trying to get the gold, and Pinocchio is, and Hobbs has an argument with him, and it's really awkwardly staged because we've seen that this is where Pinocchio will shoot Hobbs, but when they get in this argument, all Hobbs does is instead of continuing the argument, he just walks away.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as Pinocchio turns his back, Hobbs just runs back and just smashes him in the head with a brick.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the conflict.
I thought there was going to be more, seeing the future, that he was going to have to do something more to, stop this conflict. But it was really weird. He just kind of, pretended to leave. Pinocchio got bored, went back to what he was doing.
I thought it was going to be a Back to the Future type thing where he was going to get shot by Pinocchio and then pulls out, the bulletproof vest and was like, you warned me to wear it or something like that, but it wasn't. It just was no, he just knocked him out.
That would have made way more sense. It was a lot of setup for something that did not pay off in any way, shape, or form.
What we're finding is that Back to the Future is a much better way to spend your time than Harsh Realm.
But yeah, that's basically it. Hobbs goes to pull Pinocchio out of the vault. He actually sees a beautiful golden light beam pouring out of the bricks where the gold is, and he kind of takes a peek in, teasing us that there might be something else in there. Spoiler alert, we'll get a shot later where it pushes in and it's just a vault full of gold. I don't know what they were teasing us with.
It was a weird thing. It's the last shot of the show, I think, is just this shot of gold. I think it's supposed to be teasing something, but it's yeah, we know there's gold in there. Okay, thanks.
They set it up like there was going to be some sort of surprise twist that that's not what was in the vault. But when they finally do the big reveal, it is just a lot of gold.
No gremlins jump out, or there's not a double of Hobbs in there or anything. It's just gold.
So Hobbs takes Pinocchio. They go back up to the main floor. Hobbs has brought one brick of gold with him, which he points at, and he tells the feuding families, he's like, this gold is irradiated. You can't take it. And they're like, oh, okay. They bury the hatchet. They pack their bags. And in the next scene, they're all just walking away.
Yeah, and the priest is like, but me.
Yeah, the priest runs out like begging them to stay, and I'm just like, you can also leave.
Yeah, just go or find some new people. Like, it's such a weird. Anyways, all the motivations on the show is very weird. My last note I made on this was after we had that shot was, what a terrible end to this stupid show.
It was very silly. Like, the motivations were so easy to, like, the feud ended by them telling, oh, gold poison. They're like, oh, sorry for fighting. Let's just get out of here. The priest is just sad because he's lonely. And we actually get a moment with Hobbs and Pinnochio where they're, like, kind of apologizing to each other for their, like, behavior. And Pinocchio's like, well, I guess you're stuck with me a little longer. And I'm like, it's still unclear why you're spending any time. You don't like him, clearly. You just want gold. Why are you guys hanging out?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where the show wraps up. It's crazy. It's crazy that it wraps up there.
It's as disappointing ending as you could write.
As anyone could write. All right, you want to rate this episode? And then I can tell us what the series finally wrapped up at?
I'm going to not only give this an episode, but as a whole, I'm going to give this a 3.5. Which I know is really, really low for the ratings I've given, but like, you just gave me 9 episodes and that's how you ended it, 3.5.
That is very harsh on your part.
Yeah.
All right. I for me, you know what? It actually wasn't a terrible episode. It's a real 5. Just like right down the middle.
Yeah.
Which, do you want to know that brings the grand total score for Harsh Realm to?
I'm curious to see how it ranks against some of the other ones we've watched.
The final rating for this, from us anyway, is 5.85.
Oh, so it's much higher than both Beyond Westworld and Tech War.
Yeah, this is our highest rated series.
Well, to be fair, it's probably the most competent of all the shows. Now, it's not a good show, as you can see from the ratings, but it's probably the most... I think more parts came together in this than other shows.
Well, I guess this is a good time to ask. Would you recommend anyone watch this?
What I would say is, I don't remember the actual episode numbers, but there's about 3 or 4 of the 9 episodes that are just the mythology episodes and are just about trying to defeat Santiago, and I would say just watch those. And so, like, watch episodes, 2, 4, 6, and 7, or whatever they were, and just forget everything else.
Yeah, I get a super cut of, like, the world it was. Yeah, it's for Chris Carter completionists only.
That's a good way of saying it.
I don't know. I was gonna have a quick look here at any highlights or lowlights, very broadly speaking. But do you know what your highest rated episode was in Harsh Realm?
My highest rated episode? I'm gonna guess it was the episode with the doubles.
You're right. 3%ers. That was your favorite episode.
Yeah. What did I give that?
It was like a 7.5. It was
right.
Carlito's room numbers.
What was your favorite episode?
My highest rated was Cincinnati, actually. The one with the Santiago stealing that guy's face.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was my highest rated. You hated it so much, I don't know why.
I don't remember why either. This last episode was probably my least favorite, but again, it's almost unfair to the show, but it was just like, this is your final episode? What a stinker.
Well, this is funny because that brings me to the other side of the coin. We both gave one episode 3.5. You gave this one 3.5, so obviously your lowest rating. Do you know what I gave 3.5 to?
Maybe the second episode?
I gave it to the pilot.
Oh, well, that makes sense. What did I give the pilot?
Oh, probably like 8.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure I did.
I'll look. I'll give you 1 second. But I just thought it was very interesting that you hated the last one, and I hated the first one the most.
Well, there we are.
You gave the first episode a 5.
Okay.
We reversed our ratings on the last episode.
We're like the bizarro version of each other.
Well, that explains a lot.
Does it?
I can't. I was gonna try to like riff on that, but I had nothing. I don't know how. You say goodbye when I say hello.
Right.
I don't know. How does Bizarro work?
He actually says bad bye, but...
Oh, fair enough. All right. I mean, in broad strokes, were there any highlights on the show for you?
I think it was an interesting idea, but I think the execution didn't work for a myriad of reasons that we've, I'm sure, gone into over the last several hours of talking about it. But I think the concept of living in 2 worlds and those worlds somehow affecting each other and trying to work in these realities, I think that's an interesting idea. So that's a highlight, but I just don't think it ever actually worked.
Right. Well, I mean, my highlight, I think, was the weird tech stuff that was happening. Like, I loved the zip files, the pause guns, the glitches they went through, which they stopped using very quickly.
Oh yeah, they're right. They did stop after like episode 4 or something. There wasn't any more glitches.
Yeah, but there was a lot of fun, like weird. What are the errors in the code that were like kind of fun parts of it? They just never leaned into it. But those are the highlights for me, is like getting to see these weird games they played within the concept.
Also, I think maybe a highlight would be another female character who they've given nothing to do. As per every series we watch, it's just like the most misogynistic casting and writing ever.
Well, I mean, technically 2 female characters they did that with in this episode, in this show.
Oh, that's right, because Sophie didn't have anything to do either.
She has been gone maybe longer than the dog's been gone.
Who do you feel worse about, the dog or Sophie?
Sophie, because now I know she's from
Mario Brothers?
Super Mario Brothers. All right, so that's it. That's it for Harsh Realm, Jordan.
We've talked about this on the air and I think a little off the air, that at the beginning of the show, I usually have a conversation with you about how I don't think I'm going to make it through the show and how difficult it is. And then by the end, I'm a little bit wistful of like, oh, we did another one. It's finished.
It's been a good go around. I mean, not a great show, but it was interesting. I didn't hate it. I had a good time watching and talking about it. So, for the most part,
yeah. And are we going to mention what we're going to do the one-off next week?
Yeah, go for it.
We're going to watch, and I actually don't know that much about it, but we're going to watch a Justice League pilot. I actually don't know when this aired. I'm going to guess early 2000s or so. So it's sort of similar around the same time of A Harsh Realm. From what I know, it only ever aired somewhere in Europe, maybe several countries in Europe, but I think very few people have seen this. I'm going to guess it's real bad, but maybe it's fun. Maybe it's a little bit of a gem. We're not sure. So we're going to watch that next week and we'll talk about Justice League.
Justice League, the TV show. I'm very interested.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan. If there's any listeners out there who want to talk to us more about Harsh Realm or maybe get back into some of the other shows we've talked about, if you got some thoughts, some interesting stories about them, you can let us know. You can email us at continuumdrag@gmail.com. And, of course, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at continuumdrag, where we post stuff about the show pretty much every day. But, yeah, that's about it, Jordan. So I guess until next time, it's been good Continuum Dragon with you.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time, Jordan.
Bad bye.
Bad bye. Good job, Jordan. That was a good callback. Continuum Drag is recorded at Astrolab Studios in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Ruxedler. Produced by Jordan Delic and Luke Black. Special thanks to Adam Wheatner, Jeff Hanley, Emily Carter, and Dwayne Wright.